Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Committee, this is, the main meeting in Eastham Elementary School Committee meeting. The meeting will be free and recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Thank you. And we do have a quorum, so we are all set with that. Thank you. And there are really no agenda changes
Mentally.
at this point. Okay, so public comment, if there's any proper people in the public area who would like to address the committee, I'm not on our agenda. Please make yourself known. If there's anyone online who's going here in our room, who would not committee members.
No one online.
All right, thank you, Amanda. All right, the first piece of business is the transportation MOA.
And I don't see Judy Schumacher in yet.
That's,
But I'm happy to, do we have a motion here or
I
not?
have a motion. Yes, I-
Okay, well, how about I do a quick stint here and if she comes on, she can add to it. Oh, okay. So, Amanda, sorry.
Ex- Excuse me, could you twist a microphone towards you and Chair Crozier?
Yeah, one is, can you hear me, Amanda?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
They're just a little faint.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just
Thank you.
move it closer.
Yeah, right up on.
Put it in your mouth.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
So basically, the MOA that we have with the Cape Cod Collaborative, we've done the first couple of years of that contract, and then it's got a couple of extensions, I think 2 or 3 extensions to it. And so all we're doing right now is exercising our right for that next extension for the 1 year. So it's just simply that simple. And I don't know, because I think you sit on the Cape Cod Collaborative, so I don't know if there's anything that I'm missing, but it's pretty simple. It's just, all we're doing is extending the contract and exercising our right for that. Is there anything, Devin, I missed? I think it's kind of simple.
Yeah, I think yes, it's that simple. The stuff that I think the folks that would be part of that subcommittee would hear in terms of transportation isn't really this contract language as much as it is, do we have drivers? And it's sort of those kinds of components. So
That's totally, that's.
outside of the scope of this, yeah.
Completely separate from this. I mean, what we're saying right now is we don't have a lot of choice. There aren't a lot of bus companies in the area at all in the Cape. And so we're committed to them. And we're keep in mind too, the collaborative is really us. Because the collaborative belongs to us. That's why we're so heavily involved in, in terms of representation and such with it, is because it is an extension of all of these various school committees that come together that form the collaborative. So I don't know if you've got the motion. Yes, you have the motion. Okay.
Okay, the motion that needs to be made, and I will be glad to read it, someone just say as spoken. The motion to approve exercising the first option term of transportation MOA with the Cape Cod Collaborative for fiscal year 2026. I have a motion and second.
So moved, I said.
Second, please.
A second.
Okay. Any further discussion? If no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Thank you all very much. Administrators report. Okay. I'm not doing the report today. I'm going to send you a thank you. I want to thank the citizens of Eastham who allowed me to send this to me for all the years they trusted me, and I'm grateful for that. It's been my pleasure to work to support the school staff, everyone from the principal on to anyone else working in that building. Who I've seen, who know every child's family. Is just impressive with the community outreach of the school also. Every year there's special programs that reach out to the community, excuse me. And it's a school that gives every child a full education to the best of their abilities. And that's the most important thing of all. I say that from experience. My 2 granddaughters both graduated from there. My younger one is graduating this year from Cape Tech. She started charting her class. And has been accepted at all the colleges she applied to. And her older sister graduated last year, and again, same, not that title, but did really well all the way through. And I've got to thank everyone, as I said, and all members of this committee presently and all other committees I've worked with, both here in Eastham and the subcommittees that I've worked with. It's just been an amazing experience for me. And it's bittersweet that this is my last meeting. But it's time for the younger folks to take over. That's all I can say. Since when I talk about how I've been vacationing here in Eastham since 1968, which is I'm sure before any of you were born. I'm a committee, but I don't know about that.
We gonna go around the table here or?
I'm sorry. But it's, you know, it's the town accepts us, my husband, and myself, so we've been here part-time since 85 when our house was built. My husband's a teacher, so he and the kids were down all summer. Then because my kids used to get work down here for the full summer and work 60 to 80 hours a week, for as much as they wanted. I used to come do the back and forth Rhode Island on weekends and holidays. And then we moved here full-time in 1999. And it's just been, you know, a wonderful experience, and the community allowed me just to pay them back. Well, they're welcoming to us, I greatly appreciate that. In order to do a little bit of transition for this committee, I've written up a list of school committee chair duties. I sent you all a copy of it. I did my best to remember, you know, different points of what is involved with being a chair, things you get involved with. I probably missed 105 of them, but these are the ones I could remember. And I also even went to like next year, what needs to be looked at for next future issues to be addressed. Whoever is elected chair after the June meeting, please contact me. I'll be glad to sit down with you and go to details on all of these lists, on the listing, some of the things in a little further explanation. As far as future issues, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a member of the of the select board in the Expenditure on Saturday after running to at the library about the sustainability fund. And she too also said, echo what had been said, that they don't, select board don't think we need one. Because after all, we have extra dollars. And I just try to explain to them, this is something that will help us not to pay back those extra dollars. If we once we establish one and get it going, so there's something to look at to get some more for next year. Next year, probably put somebody for representative principal search committee, because someone in the room is planning on retiring next year. Or maybe not, depending.
No.
Right now, the plan is.
Maybe we can still talk about the state.
Yeah.
I hope we can. I've tried, I've been.
I know.
I mean, again, I was on the committee that selected him, it seemed like just yesterday, it's been
Yes.
10 years now. And it's just like, it's just a place, plan, I hate to see it change, but all things change.
Mhm.
And then it's basically the annual review to accept student handbook and also the school improvement plan. The mass conference reminder, first week of November, and then hopefully to meet the state representatives, we usually have the Cape Cod Collaborative the first Friday in February. Again, that got kind of a little muddled this year with the new person taking over the collaborative, but hopefully that will continue. Other than that, just thank you all once and for all. I really appreciate everything you've done, all of you, and all your efforts. Yes,
Through the chair, if you're finished.
yes, I'm finished.
Thank you. I want to say a few words about Ann Crozier. Today we have the privilege and the bittersweet task of saying farewell to someone who has been an integral part of our school community for the past 16 years. Ann is retiring from the school committee, and while we're happy for the next chapter, we also know how much she will be missed. 16 years is more than just a stretch of time, it's a legacy. It's countless hours spent in meetings, reviewing policy, reviewing budgets, listening to community voices, and making difficult decisions with thoughtfulness and integrity. It's showing up, not just when it's easy and convenient, but especially when it's hard. Anne has always led with a deep commitment to Eastham Elementary School and the Nauset community. On behalf of all of us, we thank Anne for your service, your leadership, and your heart. We wish you all the best in this next chapter, and may it be filled with joy, rest, and all the things on the other side for the sake of serving others, but especially serving your community. So with that, we congratulate you, and I have a small thing over here.
Oh.
Hoping it's not, my husband was super big, he would say, get down to Mrs. Black. Yeah.
Oh, we talked about getting cut flowers, and we decided to do that.
Thank you, yeah.
And just so that the committee knows too, we also have a special gift that we'll be giving Anne in June when we come together. just to separate, to enjoy some retirement, a couple minutes to share and celebrate our retirements. And so we have a lovely gift coming for her at that point, and I will give her then as well.
That's more than, I really, I've already got more than enough gift that I received through the email. Thank you very much for that.
This is from the committee too.
Yes.
Just a little.
Thank you. Very, oh, God, God. One chance to go. Not a busy week or two yet. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Anne. I have to say, you've been an inspiration. Your just fierce dedication to Chatham and your. Oh, sorry, Eastham. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, to Eastham.
Sounds like.
And just your encouragement for every new member who comes on board. You're so gracious, you're so patient. You make me want to be a better citizen of Eastham, so thank you.
Thank you all. You do much, much credit. After all, this was only a one-year position. What can I tell you? I was willing to get Sarah to last year, I was looking for 1 year. Be careful, Sarah.
And I take this opportunity as well. This is from the Eastham Elementary School community.
Thank you.
Just a little keepsake for you. And, on a personal level, I, obviously echo everything that was said, about you this evening. And, honestly, you did serve on my hiring committee.
Yeah.
And I can remember you coming to my classroom.
And
listening
say,
to me.
almost getting hired.
Yeah,
This
well,
classroom was the green wall.
It's Fenway Park, the whole classroom.
Yes.
So she always reminds me that she is a Yankees fan, which is. But on a personal, you know what I mean? I have to say, I mean, you've always been my biggest fan. And been nothing but encouraging to me and always invested in that school. You know what I mean? That's just a crown jewel. And I just think through your example and your support, that school receives the support of the rest of the Eastham community, so I'm forever grateful. It's been a blessing to be a part of.
Yeah, of course, we have to.
Okay. Well, we might have to update this plan.
Yeah.
But thank you very much,
Okay, thank you all very much. More than I really wanted to do for and for it all. Okay, now, we're on to the principal's report. Thank you.
Principal's report, yes. And you have my report, and I'm happy, to answer any questions about the report, if you need. But I did want to formally announce a couple of more retirements, actually. Muriel Brown, our second grade teacher, AKA Maggie Brown, is retiring. And I know that I speak for the entire Eastham School community. We so appreciate Maggie's 32 years of service to Eastham Elementary, and her passion. She's well known for her passion for science and her love for children. That will have a lasting impact on our school community. And I'm really thrilled to announce that our longtime paraeducator, Phoebe Fitzgerald, who has had a teacher's license for years, and I've gone to her and said, every time there's an opportunity, it's like, Phoebe, come on. You know what I mean? Do you want to, step into the classroom? And so when Maggie's position was posted, she came to me and she said, Bill, this is a good time for me right now. And so we're thrilled to have Phoebe. She's been just a dedicated veteran paraeducator with tremendous skill and ability, and provides student, staff, and student and staff support. So we're excited for her. Also, our cafeteria manager, Colleen Wallace, is also retiring after 24 years of service to Eastham Elementary. And as you would expect, Colleen has worked tirelessly, right, to provide. And what really stands out, I was just thinking about her, is that, and Ann as well, we've been through a lot together, but to go through COVID, that period of time in our lives and in our profession, and Colleen Wallace, during that time, out all summer long, providing, bag lunches for students, and just, she never stopped, and her and Linda Bird were in that cafeteria. But anyway, we wish her all the best. And we have hired a replacement. Her name is Katie Silva, and she'll be starting in mid-May. So we're excited for them. And then one final, huge shout out and thank you really to Tiffany Crum and to our Eastham Parents Group and all the volunteers. They just went, and they do constantly really is go above and beyond to show their appreciation to our staff during Teacher Appreciation Week. We were just blessed with all sorts of treats and a beautiful lunch and and amazing, and I have to thank all the local businesses too, provided all sorts of gift cards and things that they raffled off for all of the staff, but it was amazing. So we just appreciate, all the support that we feel from that group. And Tiffany Cron really, she's been the president there for that group for a while, and she doesn't even have children in the building, you know what I mean? But she continues, to work and to organize things. And I know there's lots of people involved, but she seems to be at the forefront, so. Any questions? Yeah.
No, I just want to comment that I met Maggie, I volunteer at the library on Saturdays, and I met Maggie there last Saturday, I think it was last Saturday, perhaps Saturday
Yeah.
before. And she was telling me she's doing a summer program at the library for the kids on Saturdays. She's gonna do, I think it's an hour or so, it's gonna be like, tell a story that she's gonna tell, and then a science project, to go, a science experiment to go with it, so Maggie will never stop teaching. me
No,
about that.
no, she's already wants a stipend for coming to take
Yes.
care of the garden that we're
Oh,
doing.
right.
I was gonna say, you might want to be a mentor, you know what I mean, a new chair.
Right, I'll probably do that,
Yeah.
be glad to, that's no problem at all.
So any questions, anybody about my report or anything that I could
Mr. Cosby? No?
share?
Okay, thank you so much.
No,
for
thank you,
everything.
yeah, thank you.
And. Brooke, your report?
Superintendent's report, sure. So I've got a couple of things. I know you've got my report in front of you, but I've got a couple of things I'm gonna add to it as well. And then I am going to answer some questions that Mary had sent me earlier, so I'll talk that through in a minute as well, but I'll start with the report. So before I even get into the report, I just want to give a shout out. Throughout the course of the year, you have like custodian appreciation day, vice principal appreciation day, principal appreciation day, bosses day, and all those
School
wonderful
nurse day.
school nurse, yeah. All the counselors, counselor appreciation day, and so all of that as well as teachers and nurses, which was last week. And so normally what we do is we take that moment in time to just say thank you to everyone. And in our school district, which comprises of 5 school districts, we have amazing people doing amazing things every single day for our children. So to everyone, whether you're helping to keep our buildings clean, or you're helping to build our building over at high school, or you're looking at keeping our kids safe, and healthy, or you're feeding them, or you're teaching them, or you're administering in those buildings, or you're guiding, facilitating, nurturing, we thank everyone who is part of Nassau Public Schools. So just a special shout out to everyone. In my report, a couple of things, and like I said, I'm going to add 1 or 2 things at the end as well. First of all, the transition efforts, these are ongoing with Dr. Brand. We continue to meet weekly. We cover a broad spectrum of topics. As I mentioned before, we have a transition document that we've been working our way through. We finally finished it. Of course, I added a couple of things last week that was moral, but that transition document is very, very thorough. We've worked through the different things. I know that tomorrow he'd like to take a different approach. He wants to go deeper into 1 or 2 things that we can chat about. So looking forward to that. The transition document has hyperlinks to all kinds of stuff, whether it's a P-Town Truro, a tuition agreement, the regional agreement, the whatever he needs, we've got basically on his fingertips for him right now. And I think he's found it to be, he's told me it's immensely helpful. So I think we've got a good document for him. So we collectively do the groundwork in terms of our hiring, but then we look to him to do that final, especially for administrative positions. If they're within the school buildings, of course, that falls to our principals. But if they're administrative, we have him involved at every level. We keep him apprised, and then when it comes down to the bottom line, we have him make the move in, do that final interview, and then decide how he wants to move forward. Because he's really building his team now. So he is actively involved, I have to say that. So I'm very appreciative of that. In terms of staffing updates for our central office, et cetera, we continue to work at staffing appropriately as we look towards the new school year. I know that we've got a treasurer position open, and that's really for the region. That's not really for the elementaries, but for the region. There's a search team that's being called together for this week that will start to go through the applications, and they'll make some decisions moving forward. And we've got some really good applications. We've had the flip side of that is we have had very few applications for the assistant director of business. I think we got 2 or 3 at the beginning, and none of them had accounts payable experience.
Hmm.
And that person needs to really know what they're doing with accounts payable. We're just not having that kind of person make application. So we're continuing to post it. And then we've also posted this week for the Director of Business and Operations, and we wish Giovanna the very best as she moves into retirement at the end of this school year, and I think she's gonna really love her time away and just with her family and grandbabies and everything else. So we're happy to see her move to that next chapter of her life. We have been very grateful to have had Rich Bienvenu from Eastham, of course. He is your CFO here, and he's been helping us out on occasion. And it has just been amazing. He's been doing work with us for the new chart of accounts, etc., on the new software that we're building for the business office. So his help has been invaluable. Currently at the central office, in terms of the support staff, those positions are all filled, and we are grateful to everyone who's working so hard to make sure that all the payments run appropriately, that the teachers and staff are being paid in a timely manner, that everything is going smoothly. So very grateful to everyone in our office. The assistant superintendent, it's been a bit of a more challenging search for us. It's not listed on here, but I just added it. The first time we thought we had somebody that was just a rock star, but so much so that her own school district offered her a position at the same level, the same position. And she took that, so we had to start at square one again. So we went up for the second time. And then we got two candidates that we thought might be what we needed, and that didn't work out. So we went back, we're out for a third time, and as we talked about it, Dr. Brand and Steve Goditis and Adam Shea. Steve Goditis is principal in Brewster, and Adam O'Shea is principal in Wellfleet, and they have been leading this search, and they've done a fabulous job. We got a fabulous search committee. But it's really important to have that right fit for Dr. Brand. Otherwise it's a lost year for you or a lost 2 years for you. So you have to get the right person. So, from my lens right now, we're going on a third time because it's just such an important position and we need just the right person. We have had 8 applicants come in this time right now. So they're grouping, I think right now, to go through those 8 applications and see. 2 were repeats and 6 were brand new. And 2 of those 6 are currently assistant supers. So we're hoping that third time is a charm. So that's where that is. Budgets, of course, I want to thank every one of our communities for supporting our budgets this year. It's just fabulous. We are, like Anne spoke earlier so eloquently about being supported by our communities, and I think we feel that on an NPS level for all of our school communities, whether it's Wellfleet, Eastham, Orleans, or Brewster. We are so grateful. So we thank everyone for that. My own transitioning process as I start to wind things down, which doesn't feel like winding at all. It's like, no, I can't do any more. Please don't give me any more. I'm working on evaluations. We're looking at closing out our year, and I'm going to go through that tonight with you with regards to Eastham, where you sit right now, why you sit where you sit, and where we're headed. So that's really the bulk of my work right now. It is getting all of that done, as well as doing what I can to help again support the high school project, because lest we forget, that's still ongoing. And if you haven't been there lately, oh my gosh, you should get there. The buildings are now, really at a state that you can almost see where they're gonna be when they're finished. Like, it's still pretty raw, but you can see where they're going, and it's very, very cool. The only other thing I would mention, I know that Anne mentioned, the conferences for school committee members and such. One of the things I think that's kind of gotten lost along the way is Day on the Hill. And if you're not, because I feel like Day on the Hill has not been maybe advertised as much for us out here, and you really should be looking at that. So it's generally early in May. It's a day that you spend on the hill in Beacon Hill, and all of your friends from across the Commonwealth will be there. It is a fabulous day to network, to connect, and see what's going on in other school districts across the Commonwealth, and to meet with your legislators, like face to face, sitting in, Senator Sears' office, having a one-on-one conversation with them. Of course, you'd be reimbursed for your mileage, etc. The folk schools put on amazing lunch, just an amazing lunch. It's just really a cool day that's an experience unlike any other. And if you haven't been to Day on the Hill, I would strongly encourage you to do it at least once during your time as a school committee member, because it's really an amazing experience. So that's that with the report. Any questions on my report right now that need clarification? No? Okay, great, thanks. So I know that Mary had sent us some questions, and I actually, you sent me questions, but then Anna had also sent questions that like kind of paraphrased your first questions.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of going to go through it all tonight, and then if there are any other questions that come up out of this or whatever, just send them to me through the chair, and happy to respond. And so I think part of what Mary was looking for is this ESSER, and I am going to speak philosophically about ESSER as well. When we first found out about ESSER monies coming into the schools, for us at that time, Dr. Millen was the person. She wasn't the assistant superintendent, but she was as close as you're going to get. She was really the supervisor of curriculum instruction. And so we looked at it philosophically and said, okay, whatever we do, we can't create a funding cliff. And so when we looked at how we spent that money, it was incredibly purposeful that whatever we did not set any of our districts up for a funding cliff. And by that, I mean, you put that money towards lots of like holes in your budget that you can't plug any other way, because all that does is create a one-time shot thing, and then it goes away the next year. And now you still got that, pick a number, $100,000-$200,000 hole. And so for us, we looked at it and said, no, this has we want to make sure that this is spent. We really put a focus on students and resources and professional development and that kind of thing. And so that's what we did. The other thing to keep in mind about, just to remind you about ESSER monies, is they were prescriptive in terms of how they were used, but particularly ESSER 3, when ESSER 3 came out. ESSER 1 and 2 kind of ran parallel to each other. ESSER 3 kind of ran separately. ESSER 3, they put a lot more strings on attached, so to speak. So you had to really be uber cautious with how you used ESSER 3. You also had to be acutely aware that they would come in and audit at any given point in time to make sure that you had spent the money exactly as you said. And so if we saw that we had to pivot for something, we immediately made a change to our application and we sent it in, had it approved, and then we spent that money. So we were always in touch with the state on that money in terms of how the expenditures were spent. In terms of how the funds were allocated, they were allocated to every single school district. It wasn't something that went to like the town, like the Student Opportunity Act, where that money goes directly to the towns. This came right to the school districts. So and then it wasn't really a single lump sum. It came to us in components, if you will. And again, like ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, because they're kind of running parallel, not quite, but pretty close. Those monies kind of funneled in a little bit more frequently than ESSER 3 because it was just a one-time shot deal. These monies all had to be spent within a very specific time frame. We made sure that we hit every single one of those timeframes that we were supposed to hit. And we also made sure that we spent every single penny so that we had nothing to hand
Left
back
over.
to anyone. So I just want to be really clear on that. And I think we saw it as a gift and we made sure we capitalized on it. So for example, when we realized that when we first came into the district that there really weren't Chromebooks at the middle high school level, they were still iPads that were still packed up in packages because people weren't using them. One of the first things we did is we said, oh my gosh, we've got to get proper Chromebooks in here. And so with the right software and the right licenses. So that was one of the first things that we did at the middle and high school. And so we made sure it was truly one-to-one with Chromebooks. That's just a small example, but it gives you an example of how our thinking was at that time. When did it have to be used by? Basically, it had to be used by the 23 and then 24. So ESSERs 1 and 2 had to be kind of wrapped up around the end of 23, school year 23, and then just after, and then the ESSER 3 was by 24. So a claw, the question came up about a clawback. So clawbacks do happen. I've been on the other side. I remember going into one community as a superintendent, and the person before me had not maybe paid quite as much attention to how the monies were spent. This is not ESSER, it's something completely different, but grant money nonetheless. And when they had the audit and they realized that that money had not been spent exactly as they thought it should have been spent, it was clawed back. And so if the government sees that you're not doing what you should be doing, they won't hesitate to go in and say, nope, you didn't spend it the way you should, or pulling it back. And that's a very uncomfortable process to go through. And so I think when you've lived that, you're for sure never gonna live it a second time. So we're not in that kind of position. We met every rule and regulation that we needed to. Does it affect the budget in any way? No, because we always kept it separate from appropriations. So that we did not hit a funding cliff. So if we did hire people, because we did, for example, like an MTSS coordinator at the middle school, that was an administrative position for a certain period of time, and it was crystal clear that that was linked to ESSER money. So when the ESSER money went away, that position went away. So we never brought anybody into the union fold, so to speak, where they were here and then they had to stay on beyond the 3-year time period. We only hired people in to those select positions. It wasn't the only one. I think we had 2 or 3 of those across the 5 districts. But it was very specific for a very specific time, and then it ended. And it ended when the money ended. If we did not use all of them, no, we used all of them. There's nothing left. For some of these funds to be used by DESE in their operation, that would be beyond our scope. We wouldn't have any idea at our level whether any of that specific money went to DESE. It wouldn't surprise me, some of it did, but the money that was supposed to come to us came to us. Will affect the ability to operate or review. It's got nothing to do with regional school agreement, nothing to do with P-Town and Truro, has nothing to do with any of that. ESSER was its own thing at its own time, but that time has passed now. So I don't know if there are any other questions. I think I answered all of them. So if there are any other questions, feel free to ask.
Mary, do you have any
Yeah.
further? Sure.
So I just want to make sure I understand. You said the ESSER monies came to the region. Does that include Provincetown and Truro monies for ESSER?
Provincetown Truro would have gotten their own.
That's what I would have thought. Okay. And how about the Eastham Elementary School?
Yeah.
They got their own. That was not part of ESSER monies that went to the region.
Region was separate.
Right. And the monies for the Eastham Elementary School went to you or went to the town?
No, they came into our budget.
Yeah.
They came
Into the region.
Yeah.
Well-
Careful how you say that, yeah.
Into the school.
Yeah,
I can
And
give you a couple
so-
of examples too.
Yeah.
You know,
go ahead.
just recently, we've implemented a new ELA program.
Mhm.
That's a
And-
perfect example.
And so we had, I think there was like $32,000 of ESSER money that we needed to spend at the end of the end of the school year in 24. And so I purchased 3 years of consumables, for that program. Do you know what I mean? So as far as our budget is concerned going forward, we have 3 years of the consumables for this new ELA program. Okay, so you know what I mean? So, but again, impacting it wasn't in a positive way, but and then it really helped us to get through all the added expenses of COVID, really.
It did.
And then, as Brooke alluded to as well, hardware purchases, you know what I mean, to update smart boards and things like that. We used, money for that. And I will say, to be honest with you, when we were coming out of COVID, and I'm sure people would understand this, I did not have an adjustment counselor at the time. I had just a school psychologist who wore several hats, and she still does. But the need to bring on board an adjustment counselor was vital, with all that we had gone through, and just to have another person to be able to talk and to help and support children. And so we split her position with Stony Brook for a year, and I did use some COVID money to help offset that expense. but then slowly but surely, kind of added her to the operating budget.
Mhm.
So she's there full time.
I think our focus really was on kids, so
Mhm.
through all that
Yeah.
extra money,
Good,
it
good
was.
point, yes.
And if we could stockpile some things where we could, and exactly, as you said, that's exactly what we did, not only in Eastham, but we did that consistently right across NPS.
Mhm.
So I think the approach that we took here in Eastham was pretty much identical to how we dealt with it philosophically across the five districts.
Who did the auditing? The state?
So the audit, if you were picked up, we still might be picked up for an audit, to be honest with you. We haven't been audited on that. Like that specific lens just yet. That doesn't mean it won't happen. It still could happen. But on the ESSER money specifically, no. But having said that, though, we're still audited every year. And so our typical auditors would still be looking at the random pieces, right, of our work. And so, it might not be the state-led audit, but our own.
Your own auditors.
Have been, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so if we've done something awry or whatever, they would have, which I know we did, they would have picked it up.
Mhm. And how were the amounts that you received allocated? I don't mean within, once you received it, but how did or how did whoever did it decide how much money you would get versus somebody else?
We have no idea. That was run through algorithms through the state.
Mm.
That wasn't something that we had anything. to do
Oh,
with.
you just were told this is what we're
This is
giving
what
you.
it is. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, because there are a number of towns in the state of Massachusetts that have not used all their money, and they were told that they had till the end of 26 to use it. And now that we've changed little few things in Washington here, they're clawing those monies back, and some people are losing $1 million here or $1 million there. Like places, some of them, I think New Bedford is one of them, and some of the other towns.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be in that position.
Yeah, that wouldn't be much fun. Thank you for doing the research and providing me with the information.
Chair seat until, I think 19th, so great.
Oh.
And I was at.
We have a few other things going on in town.
May 22 finance polls, working polls, 8 people up that morning. So, that's Jim Jack's, that's it. I mean, before I forget, I will be sending you a copy of the listing I gave the staff about the members of the committee about the chair's duties. I don't know if you heard me, I gave them each a listing of chair duties with the chairman. I will send you a copy of that, so you have to work on it, okay? Thank you. All right, now we've got that one. The next piece is, good old policy. We have sections E, F, G, and H for the second reading approval again, as we have in past times. Any changes made right now, these are all grammatical changes, not legal changes, are the ones that we started for the first reading. And this is just mainly pronouns and making sure that the right, parents, guardians, those kind of words were completely consistent throughout the sections. And kind of for the future, I believe next month you'll be seeing actually end of the policy manual, the second reading approval. And that again, the same thing, mostly, grammatical versus actual legal changes. So, and any questions on those sections?
I had a couple of really small questions.
Sure.
One's curiosity question, one's an actual question. Curiosity question was looking through the fire drills and saw that am I reading that right? That they do 2 fire drills each month in September and October and November? And then later in the year, it's 1 fire drill per month. It's like, that seems like a lot of fire drills.
No. Well, I
So-
mean, I believe it's 4 a year.
Or total.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we set that up with our local police and fire departments, and we follow their guidance, whatever their guidance is. But I will say, and Eastham might have been different, but when I first came to the district, there were places where they were not happening at all.
Yeah.
So we've put a real focus
Okay.
on that, and so there are some schools that are doing certainly far more than others. It just depends on the community that you're in, I think, right now.
The second question, not so much curiosity, but just as I was trying to read it, was in section G, and it was talking about, it's really clear when you read this section about teachers are not to be tutoring their students for money. Like that comes across several times. So that's clear, but there's one sentence that to paraphrase, basically says that the teacher, if they find themselves coming into a position in which they're influencing that student, maybe they didn't start that way and they were tutoring, but then by some change in circumstance over the years, they're now that student's teacher, that the teacher is to disclose their tutoring to that in that relationship as it's come to. But there's nothing in that sentence that says to whom they're supposed to make that disclosure to. Just says they're supposed to disclose this relationship. And so that would be the one thing that I just could not understand in that document. Like, is it the superintendent? Is it the principal? Who's that disclosure supposed to be? Okay. Yeah, yeah.
And many times the issue becomes if the teachers are tutoring students who are out of school because of illness, not like a secondary tutoring. There was if you read this, when you bring this section, it's a little bit confusing too, because you're talking about tutoring the students who are out on ill, on medical leaves, and then tutoring because they need extra help. And that's where it becomes really a fine line. So if they're out on medical leave, then the district pays for that, those tutoring sessions. And it's okay for that teacher to be doing one of his or her students, but it's when they're doing private tutoring to help a student who needs help in a subject or the subject, maybe that then becomes the issue about money for the teacher receiving that money.
Got it.
I know it's kind of like as good as clear as mud sometimes. Having read it several times.
The other thing I would say too is, keep in mind that you can always go back and revisit any one of these policies at any point in time. The right now, what we're trying to do is just make sure that the policy is as complete as and current as it possibly can be.
Right.
Thankful for the good work that you and your committee have done. But that doesn't mean that you can't go back and change, because policies change all the time. And because laws change all the time, right? And so as soon as a new law comes out, generally MESC shoots out a new policy or a new that we have to take a look at. So really what we're trying to do is get you to a good place, like at the end of next month, where everybody's got basically the exact same understandings of policy across the NPS community. So
Yeah, now we must actually read out, speaking of next month, section L, there's one change in all the policies that involves legality, again, because we got a shoot up from the state from Desi. When it comes to fundraising, school committees may not approve use of raffles for fundraising. Schools may not use raffles. Now, if it's a parents group, whole separate rules, set of rules. The schools themselves, the teachers themselves, may not use raffles as a source of fundraising.
and you really have to also I'm gonna take it one step further. You have to be licensed appropriately in order to do that. So like our boosters, the music clubs, for example, our athletic associations, those are all individual organizations with the proper status. But if it's like another group that just has come together and is going to decide, you can't do that. So it's yeah, you're right. And we felt badly because, I mean, one just came across my desk today and it's like, no, we have to say no. So, but I think it behooves the different groups, if they don't have the status, that they need to talk to these other parent organizations that have it, figure out how to get it done so that you can do it and you can do the raffles all you want. But otherwise you can't do them. You're right.
Bill, do you think that's something that's gonna impact the elementary school? Or is-
No,
at all? There are not any
We can-
fundraisers that way?
Actually, because of something happening at the secondary level, but that really came across our desk. It's not just ours, but other secondary levels have been. I mean, I've been to more basketball games where they've had 50-50 raffles. And let me tell you, I can't tell you who's running, who's not running them, but I used to raise money for a cause at that particular school. And I think that's because the secondary levels use them frequently as the kind of an auxiliary source of financing that has now come through, that all school committees can now approve them. So therefore, the school districts can't approve anyone unless, again, when you look into funding, I mean, I've got pages on this, I just pulled out of my policy manual from working in, that talk about the parents groups, the athletic groups. There were 55 different groups within systems of schools all over the state that you never even think of, but they've all got different rulings. So so we wrote ours was the overall general rules for the school department as the school department students, not those groups. Those groups all write their own rules and have rules to follow on their own. Yes, Debbie.
Thinking about the times in which we might vote as a committee to accept gifts. It comes up in different meetings here and
It's
there.
in policy.
Yeah. So, but like, right, like we're like, oh, $500 from the bank of whatever. In those circumstances, like it'll be important for us to remember kind of going forward that we want to make sure we know how that money was acquired, because if it was acquired through a 50-50 raffle at a game, we'll go, oh, we can't actually accept that money. But if we just see on like a document, check for $500, that's there's just an added layer of due diligence, it sounds like, for us.
Yeah, that's a good thing. School adjournment, yes, definitely. Okay, let's see. The next thing is a school improvement plan.
Okay.
Did we need to make?
Oh, sorry, but
Yes.
without rushing through policy, yeah, that may
Motion on the table.
May I have a motion to accept second reading of policies, sections E, F, G, and H.
So moved.
Second, please.
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting those sections? Unanimous acceptance.
Did you get that, Amanda? You look.
I did. Excuse me, Wayne, before you go back in, could you please move the speaker, the microphone by Mrs. Shaw up to Chair Crozier and Superintendent Clenchey? I can hardly hear them.
Oh.
I hear Devin, he's loud and wonderful, but I can't hear the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I was using this microphone, but you still can't hear it, huh? Yeah. Yeah, he's been there, so, okay. All right, next is school improvement plan. Bill, which side we doing this?
Can you hear me okay? Amanda?
I can
me?
hear Principal Crosby, yes. Mhm.
Great, thank you. So you have the plan, and I believe my charge really is to present it to you folks, right? Just if you have it, and if you have questions as you go through it, we could have a more in-depth conversation if you want, maybe next meeting, but just kind of go through it. I do want to acknowledge the folks that are on the committee. We have 2 community members, and it's listed on this page, Mary Lou Setti, who's also been a longtime school committee member and then a member of this improvement council since I've been there. Christine Thayer is a community member, Karen LaBranch, the staff member, Monica is the school committee liaison, and then Jackie O'Rourke is a parent member, and then Laura Hanville is our secretary. So I appreciate all of these folks and the time that they've put into meeting with me and to going through this improvement plan, to revising and making some changes. So I appreciate their effort in that. And then the school improvement plan we changed a couple of years ago to align with the NOSID strategic plan. So all of the goals and objectives and initiatives are aligned with meeting that strategic goals plan of the NOSID region. They're modest, manageable, goals from year to year. And so again, looking for input, and we could use probably, I could use another staff member on the committee. I know Mary Lou is retiring.
Just give me your books.
So maybe, Anne, you would,
Yes, I would say.
you would love to join that
Yes.
too. And then, so again, I appreciate all of their support and all of their help in putting this through, and always looking for, feedback and any sort of inspiration for things that you feel the need. Please just email me if you have something, a specific question or anything that I can answer for you. I'd be happy to. Yes.
Are you not gonna need a vote to approve that?
I don't think we vote.
Would you vote on it? Would you vote on it? But I'd say table it until next month so the staff, the committee gets a chance.
To look-
Just
to
to
look
at
at
it,
it,
yeah.
yeah.
Normally school, normally they should be voted on.
By the school committee, I mean, we voted on it
Yeah, no,
as a
we also
committee.
vote to accept it. That's great.
Yeah.
That's been a little inconsistent over the years. I
That,
think.
and that's good, I know,
Yeah.
That's what it
So is the handbook, and
Yes.
we're gonna do that against
Right,
you,
right, right.
yeah.
So anyway, I apologize. I didn't realize that was the case, but look through it and maybe next month, if you have some questions or whatever, we could talk about it further. driven by your questions and then
We definitely.
put it to a vote.
Move on to.
Okay, great,
Agenda the next one.
great.
Is the mic better for you now? I mean,
No.
Like, it's still on to- Sorry,
Sorry, Ann.
we'll try to yell.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, the next piece is the handbook. I'm glad you work with me doing that.
I'll start and then, if Principal Crosby, has anything to add. Amanda, can you hear me okay? I won't say very much that's worthy of printing it. So
Thank you.
the this is student rights and responsibilities handbook, and it looks different than your handbook would have looked in the past. In part because this is what has to happen. This handbook, as you see it tonight, is basically what all school districts are expected to do. And it outlines the students' rights and responsibilities, and each school will either have something to add to it that's specific to their school and or have something separate, like that would be like the old thinking of what a handbook should look like. Next year, we are under review by the DESE for this area, and they are gonna be looking for this, and they're gonna be looking for it exactly as you see it. So it basically, it looks legalese, it looks, like it's just got a pile of policies in it, and that's because it does, and that's because that's what we're expected to have. And they will be checking next year to make sure that we have done this. So I want to give a huge shout out to Kristen Anderson, who did amazing work with this with our principals. And basically has pulled this together because she's doing the lion's share of work, because all of our work for this review has to be into the state before the end of this school year. I think we have submitted at least 200 to 300 pages worth of documentation already. So this is one of those things. And so I'm hoping that you'll understand why we're doing what we're doing, and we do need a vote on it. So I'm hoping that you're comfortable in putting a motion forward to accept it as presented, and we can get that in the books.
Are there questions or comments to be made? If not, may I have a motion to accept?
Just a comment, and I understand how it really is a district-wide. When I reviewed the discipline policy, it just, thinking back, to my time as a parent, like, if that was like the forward-facing or the first thing I read about like discipline, like Saturday school, or I don't know, like I know that, this probably covers
All school districts.
but it was just hard to
Yeah.
kind of think, oh, so is in the Eastham in the elementary versions, are there?
So that will be up to Principal Crosby as he moves forward and decides
Okay.
what is gonna be specific, but yes, we do have that inside of NPS. So-
But yeah, I guess it just seemed like it was just the discipline was very, spoke more to older students.
Regional.
And then just knowing that this actually is the regional document,
Yeah.
like what kinds of differences really
Right.
are in there?
It's not the regional document. It's,
Okay,
it's,
sorry.
NPS.
And yeah,
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, got it,
Yeah,
But those terms are so easy to confuse.
yeah,
That's why I don't want to be
sure.
outside of this room to get confused over what's actually, this is the purposes.
but Principal Crosby will now make the next level of move to prepare something that's very specific to Eastham. And so you.
I think honestly, to be honest, I appreciate the consistency, you know what I mean, that's going to be across all of the school districts. And what we've done in the past was 2 or 3 pages that kind of, speak more to Eastham Elementary School, just like staffing, and all those directory type things, and schedules
Yeah.
and things like that. That I will, add to that. I'm not sure exactly if we're gonna provide hard copies or if it would just be, because right now it's linked.
It's electronic.
It's linked to the website,
Mm.
so updating the website, you know what I mean, to have some of the more unique things of Eastham and then adding to this document. So that will definitely.
But this becomes the core across NPS.
Right.
So I think it's the preamble, right? They say they're going to acknowledge it. They're going to acknowledge this document as parents through Aspen.
Yeah.
So having multiple documents floating out would be even more challenging as a parent to try to
Yes,
understand.
right.
But so thinking as that parent and I appreciate that, like, my child's gonna be at school on Saturday when they're in kindergarten and being really clear, even just in the organization of the table of contents and sort of maybe addressing some of those things that just don't feel right at that age, that'll be important because there's one thing you're approving. You're gonna want to be able to make sure you know
Right.
for my school, not just the public school system, but for my school, what is it that I can see that that can be confusing. What am I approving for my child?
But I think there needs to also be a level of consistency, you know what I mean? Because across, you know, because we do have the elementary schools and it's a unique situation. But if you were in, you know, a regionalized town that had a elementary school, every school would pretty much reads the same. You know, and I think, you know, if, you know, Stony and Eddie have, you know, different, you know, kind of policies and their response to things. Do you know what I mean? Generally that are different than Eastham and we're getting, that's what has happened in the past, you know what I mean? Well, I was at Stony Brook that this wouldn't happen this way and, you know, so.
That is actually happened in the policy committee itself.
I bet.
Yeah. We've had to change several policies that were like improved by, like Eastham and Wellesley, but not all these in Brook, and they had their own separate one. So we've had, that's the piece we've done with the policy committee is get all policies approved by all committees at one time, so.
And I think what's important, I haven't poured through this quite yet, but there's probably lots of situations where it's at the principal's discretion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
What the consequence would be, you know, so there is license there for the principal to make a local and individual decision on certain things.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that this becomes like a legal document, right? So if, you know, whether your child attends Wellfleet or the middle school or the high school, these are the policies that are in existence within NPS. And so this becomes the document. This is the first thing our lawyers look at. This is the first thing lawyers look at for parents. What is in that handbook? That is the first place they go to. So it's so critical. And so that's what the DESE understands that. That's why we've done the work that we've done with this document. It's so critically important.
But I will add to that, you know what I mean, to make sure it's unique to Eastham and
Oh, sure. It's just,
information that's important for.
it's
yeah.
just that I felt
I
like
get
there
it.
was a
No,
little
it's
disconnect because I know that you have worked so hard in Eastham Elementary School, really being very child-centered and a lot of work with SEL. And I'm thinking a lot of work with your, you know, school social worker, like really kind of that doesn't seem like a punitive approach
Right.
to supporting behaviors. And I would love to see if there was a way to reflect that in the Eastham part of it. That's all.
And there is that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, for all of the schools, because that little piece is different in all of those schools. So you're right. So
Yeah.
that's why the latitude is given to the principals to now add their pieces to it.
And those pieces will be added before we start next school year, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So the committee can approve the actual Eastham booklet prior to the start of school next year. Because that's always been an issue. We never have handbook in time to
Right.
get it approved.
Well, if you look right now at the website, you know what I mean, there is that. You know, we have all of the policy, not the updated one, but that preamble, as you would say, you know what I mean, is on there right now. And we can take a look at that and I'll revise that.
Legally, and then this is something I've.
You need to approve it.
We need
Yeah.
to approve it because if anything goes to court. And
Right.
they're gonna call you and say, did you approve this? You go, no, I didn't.
Right.
And they're gonna say, no, they're not responsible for it then because you didn't approve it. So it's just, that's why I'm saying legally it has to be approved. But it's in theory, it's supposed to be approved by the school committee before it's actually handed out or put
Right.
online
Yes,
to
yes.
the families.
Just so I make sure I don't understand, I want to make sure I get this right and don't screw it up.
No.
I feel like I'm going to screw it up. This is a document we're going to approve. There are going to be updates that are Eastham specific and potentially other school
Well,
specific.
he'll just do Eastham.
That's the only one we'll approve, but
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, no, I'm not going to interrupt you, but this should probably happen in June.
Okay.
Right, in order to, because if they're gonna approve whatever I'm adding to it, is that?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was where you're going, I apologize.
I think, I don't know what timeline Kristen is up against, to be honest with you, for getting it submitted.
Well, you have to approve this now,
Yeah.
but then the addendum or whatever, I'm voting to add.
If you want to.
I'm
So
just
then-
gonna suggest.
Where I was going with it was
Yeah,
two
that's
parts. One was, we're talking about in September, when parents ask us questions potentially, the parent group, you know, like, what's the document I look for? It's singular, it's a document,
Yes.
which has Nauset Public Schools handbook and a section within that handbook that is Eastham specific. It may also be other school specific, but that's what our parents will care. Okay, great. And then, so then practically, we're voting on this now, because we need to, and then in June or whatever else, it'll be just the addendum.
Eastham.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, cool.
One more question about the security cameras. Are they in like in teaching instructional spaces?
No,
Cause I, that wasn't clear to me when I didn't read it that carefully, cause I don't know if families would read that and have concerns before they sign it, saying, is my kid gonna be filmed while they're in a classroom?
No,
I don't think we've got any
Right.
cameras.
There is language though in one of the policy sections that we had voted on that talked about camera use, and the language was more, what's the term that you use over and over again? A reasonable expectation of privacy. That's where they're prohibited. So it's more of the, can't put them in places where there's reasonable expectation of privacy, can put them anywhere else. Doesn't say at any point where they're listed, because how could you?
basically public space. Public space,
Right.
outside and inside is all public space.
But I wouldn't
I
think,
just-
I wouldn't think there's a reasonable expectation of privacy in a classroom.
Right, I just wonder if there's a
Right.
way to reassure families that it's not.
That could be something that comes.
well,
later.
I guess, I suppose, I mean, you have, there's cameras on the school buses.
Right, there are some school buses. So it's,
That videotape everything.
yes.
Right, but is that an instructional space? Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
Okay,
no.
good.
But yeah, our security cameras are all, whatever inside or facing exterior doors.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and we do have one in the cafeteria and one in the gym, but. Anyway.
I just didn't know if the language might prohibit some
Oh.
families for feeling like they could.
Yeah,
Feel
I think
comfortable.
when the parents receive this booklet, receive the location of it on the website. It should be, it's somewhere, and we explain that. Any questions, please bring it to the principal or bring it to the school,
Yes.
school committee. And that way, any questions they have, and I'm sure there'll be questions, it's a lot of legalese. And that just makes it confusing for everyone anyway, so, but it can be easily brought forward.
Yeah, I guess that sort of highlights the importance of anybody kind of in the room, right? We're trying to direct people to the right person or people for follow-up questions. Like, there is an expectation this is going to be challenging to read, but it has to be this way.
Yes, unfortunately. it's-
But so yeah, we know to direct them to.
And you see, when you read through own policy, you're reading through, when you get to things like harassment, things like that, in the policies themselves, there are usually people's names not listed. There are certain policies, you'll see names listed, specific names listed, because that's required by law, so the person knows who, like, and then covers, like, our budget policies cover each school separately, like, who you report to for a sexual harassment, say, in each school, who the person is, and who it is for the department. So there are certain policies you have to include those names by law, so that people know who to report to directly. So may I have a motion to accept this document, this is a basis for the, student handbooks and responsibility here at Norton School System, School Department. Student rights and responsibilities.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Paul. I know it's difficult stuff. And now the expenditure report. You don't have a full expenditure report, but Brooke, you have some.
I have, so I wanna kind of go through this and I wanna speak to it and then, of course, if Bill has anything, so I do have a one-sheeter that I'm gonna send out, and then I'll explain kind of where we're at. Tomorrow, I didn't realize that the expenditure report wasn't here, I falsely made the assumption that it was, and it didn't get there. So along the way, when we prepare budgets in the early part of the year, we don't always know all things. And one of our key overages
Okay.
tends to be special education, right? And this year we had, in Eastham, we had 3 that were not budgeted, that were out of district placements. And so when you have students, and so when you have that happen and you average about 70 to 80,000 minimum per student, you're out of the gate right away, they're just under $300,000. And so we sat back, we monitored it over the course of the year to see where we were at. And then you kind of come to this part of the year as you're getting closer to the end and saying, okay, what else is out there? We also had a couple of long-term absences in the school. And that was probably around $80,000 to $90,000 of unanticipated expenditure to bring in long-term sub, et cetera. So those were the 2 really big areas in terms of Eastham being out of sync with its budget. Through no fault of your principal or anything like that, this is just, life happens, and when you're in a smaller building and you have a couple of those things happen, it starts to rack up pretty quickly, your overall deficit, so to speak. So we took a look at it, and Jim Nowak and I have been monitoring it very closely. We've had several conversations with Bill. And then as we started to get closer, we brought Bill in with our special ed coordinator, his admin assistant. We brought in our grants manager, and who else did we bring in for those meetings? We had several people around the table, because the region also found itself in a similar position this year. Their delta was bigger, obviously the region's stuff is bigger, because you've got way more kids in there, way more staff in there, so there's a greater chance for things to kind of go awry. But as we sit here tonight, I would tell you that I feel comfortable in where we're sitting at with Eastham and the region. Eastham right now, if you were just to look at the expenditure report, which is what we'll send you tomorrow, if you take a look at the bottom line, that's where you always go. Remember, Jill, what I always say, go to page 8, you always start there and say, okay, here's where we sit, and then you go back in. The difference for us is that we did not make any changes in the last couple of months. We just let it sit, and if there was a deficit that was occurring on the line, we let it continue to occur. Because how do you know, if you're shifting money all the time, exactly where your deficits really are, right? So for us, it was just important to say, okay, yeah, we see that this is a deficit. We understand why it's a deficit. And now we'll do the backfill to make sure that, we can do whatever we have. So Jim and I took a look at things, and that's, if you take a look at your sheet that you've got in front of you right now, when you take a look at the Eastham expenditure report at the last page, you'll see that right now it shows minus 143,000. The truth is, it has been higher than that as we were going through the year. At one point in time, it was just under 200. But right now it sits at minus 143 and change. So it's at this time we go back and we start looking at things like circuit breaker, etc. So right now, for example, we've got about $4,000 that we can move forward from circuit breaker. We also got word just last week that we got extraordinary relief, and this actually is referencing from last year. Keep in mind, a lot of your special education reimbursements come in 1 year late, right? So you have to expend the money first and get the reimbursement, which is fine to be reimbursed, but you still have to put the money in first, and that's kind of throws you out of kilter all the time. But we got just under 44,000 for circuit breaker extraordinary relief. We did receive rural school aid. Not all schools in Nauset Public Schools received rural school aid, but Eastham did. And so you see that there's $37,000 in change there. There's a tuition agreement from a special education program that was running for a good chunk of the year. And so there was about 29,000 in there, and gifts right now at 12,000. There's also grants, as we sat down and took a look at different grants and how different grants could help to offset costs. There, Jim and I sat down, we said, yeah, we can identify about $50,000 that will come into Eastham for grants. So that's what that is. And then down below, capital project transfers, it shows 36,000 if the town would allow. And that's basically, let's say you were gonna have some new carpet, you say, you know what? I think we'll put that carpet off 1 year and we'll use that money to help offset this. But that really falls to our town management. And so I have had discussion with Jackie Davey, just so that we're clear on that, and talked to her about this. Now, so this basically shows that you would end your year potentially with 70,000 in the bank, if you take a look at the bottom dollar. So this is where we sit today. That doesn't mean, though, that there won't be some potential other changes. So, for example, we don't generally do the backfill of any utilities if there's extra money in utilities until the month of June. Because if you need oil or propane or gas or whatever, we don't touch that account until the very end. But you may have some savings. So for example, this is not your school district, but the middle school, we're anticipating that there could be as much as 30 or 40,000 in that line that we'll be able to unencumber because we won't have to use it because it was a pretty decent year. So those are the conversations that will happen in the month of June when we take a look at those things. So as much as this is where it sits right now, these are projections. These are what we think we are going to be able to do. For example, the gifts line may not have to be the 12,536. We may have to go back and take a look, and not have to use all of that. I think that's what I'm saying, circuit breaker. Maybe we don't have to use the 4,000. Maybe we only need 1,000 from it. So that, you will still see that toggle back and forth through the month of June as we take a look. And this is making an assumption that there are not any more major purchases made between now and the end of June. And that Eastham follows a regular typical cycle. So we've done the projection, banking on the notion that it'll follow a typical cycle, and that's where it could potentially land. But we're not to the end of the school year yet, so this is where we sit as of tonight at 6:15 at evening. So I'm happy to respond to any questions. And Bill, did I miss anything?
No, I
here?
have nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Okay. Question for you, Sarah?
Is your goal to get that last number, the projected surplus deficit, to zero?
No, but there's no preconceived notion at all, other than we don't want it to be in the negative.
Right.
I think that's the thing. Right, and so, last year we had to come forward and ask for some additional support from the town to help us out. And what we're trying desperately to do right now is make sure that we're trying so hard to make sure that doesn't happen again. But you can't bank on that, you just don't know when you're gonna have different kids coming in and out, or changes with the students, or, because I don't want people to think that this was just kids that have dropped in from other places. Sometimes it's your own children and things manifest themselves, and all of a sudden you need to pivot and do something different in terms of educating them. So I'm talking, of course, for the special education, because that's really the juggernaut for us, right, is special education. That's not a criticism, that's just saying that's the reality that we deal with.
And that every school district.
Every school district deals with it, yeah. And like I'm saying, the region was much bigger this year, and same thing, we had five new out of district places in the region this year. And one of them was very, very expensive, so, yeah.
But for example, like the 36,000 that in town hall approved that at this moment, you actually don't need that.
Well, right now, yeah, if you were to look at the 70,000, yeah.
Yes.
So
We're saying, well, we don't know what's gonna happen for the next month and a half, so
Right.
let's just.
we're gonna
already
bank on
put in
it
that
and see,
request.
yeah, we'll put in that request, and that's exactly what I said to Jackie. I said, I am not asking you for anything right now. I'm just putting this on the table saying, we may be coming to you and looking for that. So right now, it's just It's just sitting there to help if we, to backfill the supposed 143 as such. But even that 143 may not be 143 in a couple of weeks if once we unencumber some other funds,
Right.
like utilities.
And is that gifts number, like when we approve gifts here, that's
That's a
That's
variety of
those.
things, yes, and we basically have one account, and that's what's sitting in that account, right
or
now.
specifically that were given to Eastham Elementary?
Right, it's specific to your school only, nothing else. But even that's an account that we're putting in there, but hopefully not having to do what we're putting on there right now.
And, you know, keep in mind, we have 5 weeks left of school, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Ready for
it costs.
Christmas.
Costs, it costs money.
And from my perspective, the big point is make sure, we cannot enter the negative, we cannot by law, because if we do, we get penalized to the consumers. I met a couple of people from systems this year in other places in Massachusetts, they were just coming out of that piece of having penalized, and it's lots of dollars that they penalize you. You know, Johnny might have to give us some more, if that's where it goes. My other point, the other thing, we're looking at is a planning budgets. I think we need to relook at our monies that we put into, coverage for long-term subs and regular subs. That always seems to be up, and I recognize, again, that's something you cannot count on, but it seems like we're always low in those areas, so that when the issue end of the year comes, you can be a hole in that area. You need to switch funds around. Don't know whether it's possible to do that. I won't be here. I'll get a point, but I'm just saying that's an area that I've noticed that it seems to be kind of a sore point.
It's the,
Doing budgeting.
like, having only sat in on any of these things for a little under 2 years now, I guess naively, it's like, I understand, I can appreciate that you can't project for these things, long-term substitutes, special education budgets. And yet it feels like that's not the same to me as you can't save for these things. And that's where hearing like, we're not convincing the town to save for these things. It's a piece that I just don't understand. It seems like that's what I would think everybody would want. So I'm curious to learn more in the future about what is it from their perspective that in this kind of communicating, we can't project, these keep coming up, they're recurring things over the years. Why don't you want to save
As
for
I
them?
said, I was told by Amy, economic, my select board member, that the town has a surplus fund. And Mary knows better than I do, obviously, and she said, so there's always money available for any needs the school has. And again, I tried making the point, we're trying to get independent of that, so that that surplus fund can be used for something else if it's needed. But again.
And the article, the quote of Rich in the Provincetown Independent basically said they didn't want the school committee. being
Have a
in
separate
control of money.
Separate stabilization
Having a
fund.
separate fund That
Right.
that basically.
Right, because the town, we're into the town umbrella, that's why. And so I understand everybody do too. And just so you know, some, we were at the meeting last night, it was mentioned, Jackie will be retiring sometime in the near future also. So there'll be a new town administrator at some point, relatively, I don't know how soon that is. I'm not gonna set any dates for her, 'cause I don't know, that was just brought up last night, in the candidates night. So there are lots of things going on, yes.
Just a note too, that right now, like, even the region is looking at establishing its own stabilization fund. They can do it, the region can operate differently, right? So it can do it on its own without everybody else.
Yeah.
And having to agree to it. But every one of the communities has done it. So Wellfleet has a fund,
Yeah.
Orleans has a fund, Brewster has a fund, and they all have different amounts of money in it, right? So, I mean, Brewster's is well over 100,000. Orleans is probably gonna be right at about 100,000, and Wellfleet, I believe, just passed 100,000. So just to give an example of what's happening in your areas, and I think as soon as the region feels that it has a chunk of money that it's going to be able to put in there, you'll see them do the same thing. So I'm not saying good, bad, or ugly, I'm just saying, just so that you know what's happening within Nauset Public Schools.
I think it's something that should be pursued with the town, and as I said, you can only pursue it to the point of getting onto the warrant for next May. That's at this point, what all you can do with it. Because there was also a special meeting in June, folks, in case you haven't heard.
Yeah.
Special meeting, a special vote in June for the, water project. So, we've got a lot going on in this town. Okay, next item is. the-
Excuse me, Ann,
Yes.
I do have a question. Of the 143 that you've got at the top there where you've got the minus, how much of that is due to special ed costs?
A lot.
Is most of it special ed?
I would say most of it is
Oh, okay.
special ed, yeah, I think we've kind of backfilled for the others, like I said, you have 3 students, 3 separate
Yeah,
students
yeah,
who were
yeah.
not. At about 80,000 students, that, just do the math,
Mhm.
that was not budgeted.
Right. I heard you say that. I just wanted to know, of the 143, I was,
It's a perfect example. of
Yeah,
why you
yeah.
should have. That was my first reaction when I heard that
Yeah.
they didn't put one in, I thought, oh my gosh, here's a perfect example of why you need one.
thank you.
Okay, so next item on the agenda and final item actions approval of minutes for April 15th, 2025.
What's your information?
Oh, I'm sorry, reports. Skip right over reports, right?
Yeah, that's okay. You're allowed to, it's your night.
My son said, my old son said, saying, don't mess it up too much for me last night.
Oh.
Try not to. My son's not well. Yes, reports. We've already talked, sure council's coming running, one group on the collaborative. Anything further? with
Yeah, we're meeting tomorrow.
And are you doing communications?
Yes, the communications subcommittee, their last meeting was just a lot of debate about the new NOSIT app and rolling it out to, the community at large. There was a discussion about having us hand out flyers before all the town meetings to get, folks to be downloading the app, but,
Pieces of paper to notify about electronica. Cool.
and just this idea that I'm still struggling with the idea that people that aren't parents are going to download the app and that's how they're gonna. Cause that was the purpose of doing that, but it was put on hold until there was some more education and materials or videos about how to actually use the app.
And just so you know, what communications I found out again in meeting we had with just the GS and sub GS, vice GS on that communication committee is actually a subcommittee of the region only.
Oh,
They
okay.
invited the elementaries if they want to attend. I'm not saying you should
Oh,
attend.
great, cause yeah.
Right. When we were talking about the number of committee subcommittees, everyone has to put up. And I said, what's this falls under the communication subcommittee? And the people who chair the region said, oh, no, that's a region one. The person who brought the chairs that thought it'd be nice to invite the elementaries. So and that's why I wrote it with Lucy, because that's not one of our school department.
Okay.
One less thing to assign to somebody. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right, her hands and he's exactly right, you articulated that
Yeah.
beautifully.
What was they like? Mental health.
They had to postpone it because there was a conflict with Wellfleet town meeting,
Oh,
so
yes.
that'll be coming up soon.
And Monica, parents group or
Well, the next meeting for the school improvement will be until June. And parents group, we're still looking. Who can fill Tiffany's shoes and fill other positions, and I don't think there is anyone yet.
did you do your date night?
Yes, and it was wonderful. It was really wonderful, and we also had a dance 2 weeks ago. The 5th graders, we put that together, and it was really wonderful to see the kids so happy, especially the girls dancing. It's fun to see the school having all the time.
Definitely. And policy has not met since the end of March, March 31st, our last week. Thank you very much. And I will not know what the next one is. Thank you. So that will be coming forward. Whenever you name someone, that could be new information for that person to take over policy.
And who has been historically on the superintendent evaluation?
I was,
It's over the chair,
and I was on central office budget.
right, and negotiation with that.
Yes. But negotiations, I think this coming year or the year after?
Year after.
Year after.
You got 1 year for free.
Our negotiations. Okay. Okay, so I have a couple of all committees. I think I have now, but I had my brain open. So on that, I will ask to approve the minutes for April 15th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 15th.
A second to the motion.
Second?
Any questions or discussions on them? All in favor of acceptance of the motion of the minutes? Thank you. Thank you all very much.
I was like, I don't think that's the one that I was here when everybody was gone.
You were here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that you were here for. I checked the minutes. Today.
Okay.
You were here. Let's see. The next meeting date is June 10th. And with that, I need a motion to return the meeting, please.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
No second.
all in favor?
Absolutely.
Good night and thank you
Night,
all
thank
very
you.
much.
Bye.